Hey everyone, it is Irene, Lyon here, and welcome to this YouTube channel, and welcome to this entire world of, I like to say, healing trauma, nervous system health, and all things neuroplasticity. I have been doing these videos for many, many years, so if you're new here, thank you for stopping by, popping by. Be sure to subscribe to this channel so you get updates, and when you finish watching this video, which I hope you get to the full video, please leave a comment, ask a question, drop a note, let us know what you thought of this video. So this is an older video that you're about to watch. So it's from 6 years ago, which is hard to believe. And I report on a case study that I read in Bruce Perry's book, Born for Love, Why Empathy is Essential and Endangered. It is just from chapter 6 titled No Mercy. And I call this the story of Ryan because Bruce Perry uses that name to depict this case study. And it's a case study that went straight to my heart and made me see, as I knew, but really reinforces how important it is that we treat our young, especially our infants, with care, connection, secure attachment, and that they have a primary caregiver in the first 3 years of life. I hope you watch this video. It is intense, some of the stories and what occurs, but I think education and learning about this stuff for future generations is so important so we don't repeat these horrendous mistakes. So have a watch, and like I said, please leave a comment, subscribe, and thank you for being here. Hey friends, Irene here. Welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about empathy. And if you are following me on my channel here on YouTube, you will have seen a previous video where I talk about a story that Peter Levine writes about in one of his books, where he is diving into childhood trauma and how that has repercussions into our adult life. I've got another story. This is a beautiful book here called Born for Love. It's written by Bruce Perry, and the subtitle, Why Empathy is Essential and Endangered. Now, I'm not gonna read through the chapters, but this is in a chapter of his book called No Mercy. It's chapter 6. And if you are anybody who wants to dive into these stories that these professionals, he is MD, he is a PH.D, he's a psychiatrist. He's one of those guys, Bruce is one of those guys from what I know, I've never met him, I'm a big fan of his work though, who will come in when a child or a minor has done something that is unexplainable. And he comes in to kind of decide, is this individual, is this minor mentally unwell? What went wrong? And I want to recount the story because this is a story I talk about in podcasts when I'm interviewed to really give people an understanding of what empathy is, why I believe that we're not born evil wanting to hurt, but how things can go horribly wrong when the needed pieces are not in place. So in this chapter 6, titled No Mercy, he talks about a 17-year-old named Ryan. And I'll just read the first little bit of the first chapter. So he says, 17-year-old Ryan, of course that's not his real name, had everything a teenage boy could want and then some. A brand new Lexus SUV, a huge house, wealthy parents, popularity, and now admission to an Ivy League school. It was time to celebrate. Ryan rounded up his friends, obtained booze, and planned a serious party. At first, it seemed like any other such event, excessive, loud, potentially dangerous for mixing drinking and driving and raging teen hormones, and not unusual in the adolescent American. And that's true. I'm in Canada. I will admit I had my days of partying when I was in those age bracket years. I think many of us do. And then he goes on to say how Ryan had brought in some extra entertainment. And then what occurred is he decided to invite a girl to the party as Bruce puts it in here, extra entertainment. And on a whim, he had invited Amy, a 15-year-old developmentally disabled girl, to the party, who people knew her, she went to the school. And she was excited. You know, this popular guy is going to come and pick me up in his beautiful car. We're going to go to his parents' house where there's a pool. We're going to party. And there was this thought that maybe she'd have some cool friends after all. And then Bruce writes, after that day, however, it would be a long time before Amy would smile, trust anyone, or even sleep through the night. And so this is going to be a little triggering. I think it's important, though, for the sake of teaching you about how empathy is built. And this is going to show you how it doesn't have to be that abuse and horrific circumstance and adversity that makes it such that a person does something horrific. So I know I'm priming you and setting the stage. So just stay connected, stay with your body, and know that I'm doing this to help people understand why this occurs. And so Ryan says to Bruce, so this is after this thing occurred, in his office. He says, "We did her a favor," Ryan told Bruce later. By then, he was in an attorney's office out on bail. Although he had looked like a dream prom date, perfectly groomed, impeccably dressed, strongly built with bright blue eyes, there he was trying to explain why he had raped Amy and made her put on a show for his friends. Bruce, as a potential expert witness in Ryan's defense, was examining this kid, the 17-year-old kid. And Ryan says to him, "I don't know what the problem is, really," added Ryan in a polite way, in a very well modulated voice. "She never would have gotten laid by anyone as good as us." Okay, so this hits hard. Now what I want to do is, in this book, Bruce has, before this chapter, described horrific orphanage circumstances where he talks about a woman named Eugenia, again, not her real name, who was brought up in a neglectful orphanage. I think it was in Romania. And another kid who is now an adult who had a family of con artists, and that's why he got into trouble. And so we're like, why would this kid who had everything that he could possibly want, he was well dressed, he wasn't abused, he wasn't traumatized, what would create this kind of evil wanting to hurt another human being, and especially another human being who is a little bit less able to take care of herself, right? She was developmentally disabled. So when Bruce started asking questions to, obviously, Ryan, but mostly to the parents, here's what he found out. So the mother had had very little experience with babies in general. If I can recall, and please read this book if you want to dive deeper, she had never had experience with infants. And this is a number one thing that we have to think about when we imagine people having progeny and delivering their own and having babies. A baby is the most helpless and complex creature to be with. And yet, if we are used to being around children and we know how to be with them and attune with them, it actually comes quite naturally. But if we've never had experience, if we've never had siblings, if we've never had nieces and nephews, if we've never had friends who have infants, we might not have any clue what to do. This doesn't happen in tribal cultures where families live together and watch little ones grow up and all that kind of thing. So what he had found out was that the mother was very busy doing philanthropy work and doing these, good deeds for other people who need help with all the money they have, because if you can recall, they were one of the wealthiest families in that town. But what was occurring was, because she was off busy, husband was off busy, little baby Ryan had a nanny. Now, there's nothing wrong with nannies. Nannies can be brilliant connections and attunement individuals for little infants. But here's where it goes a little sideways. Bruce started asking about the nanny, and the mother said, "Well, which one?" And then that's where the little kind of light bulb went off in Bruce Perry's head, and he goes, what do you mean, which one? It turned out this poor baby, Ryan, by the time he was 3 years old, he had had 13 nannies. Pause on that for a moment. That means that that child never had a chance to bond to one solid individual, right? To feel co-regulation, to feel empathy, to feel connected and attuned to. And the reason why they kept getting rid of nannies wasn't because the nanny wasn't good at the job. It's because after a certain amount of time, I'm going to guess a few months, if they went through 13 in 3 years, what occurred was that when mom would come home, there'd be a point at which the baby no longer wanted to be with the mother. He wanted to be with the nanny, and for good reason, right? That child was connected to this caring individual for, let's say, 8 hours of the day, and then this stranger that really is mom comes home. He doesn't want to be with her. He wants to be with the person he just connected with. So what she did is she would fire the nanny. Every time he wanted the nanny more than mother, she would fire the nanny. And that is atrocious. That is abuse. That is horrific, right? And Bruce gave a great analogy, and I'll kind of paraphrase the analogy. What she did, and not knowing, she really didn't know from the sounds of it, she really didn't know. She was just immature in understanding what babies needed. But what occurred was that it would be like teaching a child how to speak a language by teaching them a different language every day for the first year of their life. Imagine that. Imagine if you have one language one day, and then the next is another, and then another, and another, and you never know which is which. That fries your wires. That screws with your ability to comprehend. And so this kid, Ryan, who did this atrocious thing to this 15-year-old girl, it occurred because he really didn't have the knowledge of what empathy is. He did not understand right from wrong. He was smart. He was able to move through life and be this perfect kid, but deep down, there was a lot in there that was broken. If I can recall from the chapter, he was also a child who loved being with devices. He was with his stuff. He was good when he was with stuff because he could connect to stuff because it would never leave him. So you see where I'm going here. Kids, humans, children, teenagers, they need human connection. It's not to say that the iPhone and television isn't, it's still okay. I watched a lot of TV when I was little. I can guarantee you that, as did many of my friends, and we are not doing atrocious stuff like this. However, when there isn't, in addition to that connection to stuff, connection to beings, another person teaching right from wrong, and that love at the beginning, that empathy and attunement and security and safe haven, if that is not there, we are breeding people who are going to hurt other people. All right. Again, just to give you one last look, this is from Bruce Perry's book, Born for Love, Why Empathy is Essential and Endangered. I highly recommend it. It's a beautifully written book. It has elements of all humanity in it, not just stories like these, but people who have recovered from deep, deep adversity. I don't know what occurred to this young man. I've been meaning to reach out to him to ask if he knows. From my experience and my knowing, it is very tough when that kind of early damage has occurred and it hasn't been caught. But we never know. Hopefully something has occurred so that he can learn and he can build a little bit more empathy into his system so he can have a life that is deserving of goodness and joy. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thanks for listening to these stories. As I've said in the previous video where I recounted another story, be sure to look for that. I'll link this at the end. I think we need to listen and learn and get to know why things go wrong as opposed to just pointing blame and saying that person is evil and horrible and how could they? I think if we're saying how could they, let's find out why they did. Because there's a reason. There's a reason why they did. It isn't just for some whim and, because they felt like it. Something deep in the physiology drives that behavior. All right, take good care. We'll see you next time.